The appeal. The lives of Iran's political prisoners hang in the balance. We must act now. This is a campaign called Free Iran's Political Prisoners Now, and it was initiated in the fall of 2020 in response to a call by the Burn the Cage, Free the Birds campaign in Europe. In their statements, they have made clear that the Islamic Republic of Iran's repression is not something new. And since the establishment of that regime 42 years ago, there have been constant and continuous campaigns of terror and suppression waged to crush and subdue years of opposition and rebellion of the people by utilizing all means of repression, prison, torture, execution, and mass executions. But something different happened in December 2017, particularly, and November 2019. These were extremely important developments. These rebellions oxygenated all of Iranian society and were taken by the fascist theocratic rulers as a potential threat to their whole system. The regime was and is dead serious about not allowing such an actual threat to their rule to go unpunished. They want to make clear that these upsurges do not get infused with the outlook and program of the most radical revolutionary societal change. So they made this call, the Burn the Cage, Free the Birds campaign, and some of us responded to it, like I said, in the fall of 2020. And because of monitoring the situation there for the political prisoners, we felt in March of 2021, last month, that this campaign had to be put on an emergency basis. This emergency appeal is issued by people in the U.S. and directed to those inside the belly of the beast. Over 200 people have already endorsed it, including 11 former political prisoners from Iran, and it was recently signed by Jody Williams, 1997 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and Gloria Steinem, author and feminist activist. It's called The Lives of Iran's Political Prisoners Hang in the Balance. We must act now. And our statement says, a brutal campaign of arrests, torture, and executions is now taking place in Iran. This is an emergency. The lives and dignity of hundreds of political prisoners are in imminent mortal danger. All those who stand for justice and yearn for a better world must rally to the cause of freeing Iran's political prisoners now. Beginning in October 2020, the Islamic Republic of Iran launched a massive new wave of arbitrary arrests against labor, women's, and human rights activists, dissident intellectuals and artists, protesters and revolutionaries, and members of religious and oppressed minorities. Many are now being tortured, held in solitary confinement, and denied legal rights, assistance, or medical aid, as the IRI attempts to force confessions, conduct sham trials, and carry out brutal floggings. Amnesty International warns of an alarming rise in executions, with 49 prisoners executed between December and February. This regime has a blood-stained record of attempting to violently crush any form of dissent and resistance, including sudden mass executions of political prisoners as happened in 1988. We cannot allow this to happen again. Importantly, this repression has been met with inspiring heroism. Many prisoners, their families, supporters, and various Iranian organizations have been speaking out and demanding freedom for all Iran's political prisoners, at great risk to their own safety. The Iranian Writers Association has denounced the execution of prisoners of conscience, even as it is under extreme repression. Several members are imprisoned, including Arash Ganji, sentenced to 11 years for translating a book on the Kurdish struggle in Syria. Journalist and Defenders of Human Rights Center member Narges Mohammadi was imprisoned for 8.5 years. She is calling for protests against the solitary confinement of the two brothers of Naveed Afkari, the Iranian wrestling champion, executed last year for being part of the 2018 mass rebellion. His brothers are sentenced to 54 and 27 years. The documentary film Nazreen, about imprisoned attorney Nazreen Sotoudeh, is an example of this nightmare of detentions and this implacable spirit of resistance. Iran's political prisoners face a dire, life-threatening, immediate emergency. Here are just a few other examples. A number of dual nationals from Europe, Australia, and the US are being held in the political ward of the notorious Evin prison in Tehran. Amnesty International recently sent out urgent action alerts on two of these prisoners. Nahid Tagavi, rights activist, retired architect, and Iranian-German citizen, suffers from diabetes and hypertension. Her daughter, Marian Claren, reports that her mother was kept in solitary confinement for 151 days and was interrogated 80 different times for a total of 1,000 hours during her first 147 days of imprisonment. And there are alerts from the Center for Human Rights in Iran about her deteriorating health condition. Same with Mehran Rauf, a British Iranian citizen and labor rights activist, is being held in prolonged solitary confinement, according to Amnesty. Rauf has been denied access to his own lawyers in England and has no immediate family in Iran, and his safety has not been verified for many months. Women prisoners are increasingly transferred to more remote prisons, limiting access by their family and lawyers. These include Zepeda Golian, a freelance journalist arrested for reporting and allegedly taking part in labor strikes. In early March 2021, she was suddenly transferred in chains from Tehran's Evin prison to Bushehr prison in southern Iran, more than 373 miles from her parents. Somaya Kargar, a Kurdish activist and philosophy graduate of Tabriz University, arbitrarily detained since October 16, was moved from Evin prison to the even filthier suburban prison of Karchak, outside Tehran. The regime is refusing to allow her to receive scheduled medical treatments in Paris, which could save her from blindness. All of Iran's political prisoners must be unconditionally and immediately released. The government of the United States and Iran act from their national interests. And in this instance, we, the people of the US and Iran, along with the people of the world, have our shared interests as part of getting to a better world, to unite to defend the political prisoners of Iran. In the US, we have a special responsibility to unite very broadly against this vile repression by the IRI and to actively oppose any war moves by the US government that would bring even more unbearable suffering to the people of Iran. We demand to the Islamic Republic of Iran, free all political prisoners now. We say to the US government, no threats or war moves against Iran. Lift US sanctions. As to what you can do, you can go to the website, freeiranspoliticalprisonersnow.org, endorse and spread this emergency appeal. Over 200 people have already endorsed it, including 11 former political prisoners from Iran. And it was recently signed by Jody Williams, 1997 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and Gloria Steinem, author and feminist activist. We urge you to go to the website and sign it today. freeiranspoliticalprisonersnow.org.